What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So the hype and anticipation around a Nintendo Direct right now is through the roof, and we know how this goes. Usually Newswave will go up, and then an hour later, a Nintendo Direct will get announced. Well, not this time. We're going on the offensive here, and I'm actually going to talk about some of my predictions and thoughts as to what could be in a supposed Nintendo Direct that could be announced at any time. Also, we are going to be talking about some comments from PlatinumGames that seem to concern a lot of people online as we appear to be heading towards a future of just all live service games. And we're also going to be talking about one analyst's thoughts on Microsoft and Sony looking to acquire different game studios in Japan. Guys, if you enjoyed these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the SpawnWave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with Grand Theft Auto 5. We had talked before about Take-Two saying, yes, we are working on Grand Theft Auto 6. Big surprise, but I do like to check in on Grand Theft Auto 5 sales because it's absolutely mind-blowing for this game, and it continues to be so. We can see this posted up over on Twitter. This from Dom showing a slide that says Grand Theft Auto 5 has now sold in over 160 million units. In fact, it sold another 5 million units in this previous holiday quarter. 5 million more copies of Grand Theft Auto 5 went over the store counters. That's mind-blowing. I mean, it's reached $1 billion in retail sales faster than any entertainment release in history, with the series overall selling in 370 million units lifetime. In fact, apparently the Grand Theft Auto trilogy did really well. It exceeded their expectations, Take-Two, and there was a number of about 10 million floating around in terms of its sales. It's just, the Grand Theft Auto brand is massive, and that's why I said, hey, whenever Grand Theft Auto 6 gets revealed and we have that build up to release, it's going to be ridiculous. I mean, seriously, the hype around that will be astronomical. So I'm looking forward to when that does happen in 2025. Also, we know the launch for Battlefield 2042 has been rough, to put it mildly. Things did not turn out, I feel like, as EA was hoping they would. And of course, people who bought the game, in fact, they're to the point where they had to push the roadmap back so they could start working on things like the scoreboard. Well, it looks like gamers are not too happy as they went to, well, change.org. Those seem to work all the time. We can see this posted up here. Allow refunds for Battlefield 2042 on all platforms. It's a petition that's reached nearly 15,000 signatures, and apparently if they reach 50,000 signatures, they would be able to go with a class action lawsuit, and that seems like a bad idea considering those take quite a bit of money and time to the point where you may win, but that would just be, oh, you get an $8 check in the mail, like 5-6 years from now. The interesting thing about this, though, is there appeared to be some speculation, even EA alluding to the idea of the game going free to play. That would be something they'd have to deal with, though, because there are people who spent $70, even over $100 on dual entitlement, remember that, for this game. So how do you deal with that? Do you then credit them virtual currency in this cash shop that I'm sure you built up with all kinds of value in there, EA? Is that the way you go about it? Because that's going to be an odd situation if that does happen. Otherwise, though, they need to spend time getting this game to an acceptable state, and it appears it's going to be at least another 6 months before it gets there. Oh, and take a look at this tweet here. This was posted up by, I'm going to say Euphilis, saying, trailer, finally. Huge emphasis, thanks to, we have two people there being thanked for the absolute best main theme for Trips Voyage. Now, I want you to take a look at this trailer here for a second. I saw this, that looks all right, looks pretty good. But then I realized, wait a minute. This was built completely in Dreams. At that point, I'm like, wow, okay, this looks incredible, considering it was built in a game, basically, that was released on the PlayStation that's designed, of course, to then build other games. And I'm not really sure why Sony doesn't put any emphasis on Dreams, at all. You never see them market it or talk about it or even port it to the PC. They're doing all these PC ports. I have no idea Dreams is not on the top of that list and already there. I mean, when you play Dreams, you move around with the gyro on your controller, simulating a mouse. And obviously, it being something that's more of a tool set to build out other games, you figure a keyboard and mouse would be way more comfortable. And if people are able to achieve this on a controller on your PlayStation. Just imagine what could happen if they open it up to the PC community. So I don't know if that's something that'll happen, but it's mind-blowing to me that it has not yet. And you see something like this and it's just impressive stuff. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a Nintendo Direct that has not been announced yet, but there are a lot of rumors going around and speculation that it could be announced anytime now. So let's go over some of the titles that we're kind of expecting to be there and some different things they could be showcasing for 2022 going into 2023. We already have a few titles coming up here that we're looking forward to, Triangle Strategy and Kirby in March, but what can we look forward to after Kirby comes out? That's something I think Nintendo will be addressing here in this upcoming Direct for the month of February. So some of the titles that have already been rumored and talked about previously are games like a 2.5D Donkey Kong game. It's kind of been back and forth. Is it 2D? Is it 3D? It appears like it's something that's going to kind of merge the two together. So we'll probably have to see it to understand what people are getting at there. A new Fire Emblem game, not necessarily a remake as we were kind of expecting. No, a brand new Fire Emblem game has been rumored. Then there's that Metroid Prime remaster or remake, and that's what I'm really curious to see. Mostly because we've had the trilogy before at full price at the time, but then you come back with a Metroid Prime like remaster from Retro that they seem pretty excited about, so I'm sure it'll look good and play well, but is that a $60 title now when we've had all three before in one package? Well, let's see that. And then there has been talked around a casual game sequel, and it's sort of been alluded to by Emily Rogers as one that may be a hard sell for current gamers, and that's sort of made everyone think of 1-2 Switch, so maybe it's a sequel to that one. And then obviously the big elephant in the room, a Mario Kart sequel of some kind. We were way off track for the typical Mario Kart cycle where it's like every 3 years you see a new one show up. Well, it's been a long time. Mario Kart 8 came out back during the Wii U generation. It got ported to the Switch, and here we are in 2022 with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe still as the newest game. I know people point to the cell phone Mario Kart game, but come on, I mean, the big console or even, I guess, handheld Mario Kart game is the one that people are really looking for, so maybe they'll show up with something there, hard to say. And then they also have to date a bunch of titles. That includes things like Splatoon 3, which I am looking towards the summer for that one, Bayonetta 3, most likely towards the end of the year there, and then Advance Wars that they have marked as spring. Now, we're also looking for some big reveals, and there's probably two that I can think of right now. One being the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, a title, which apparently that's going to tell us quite a bit about this game, whether it's time manipulation or something. Sure, maybe that has some sort of part in the title itself, and then maybe a release date, although that might be something they hold until midway through the year, around when we would normally have E3. Maybe there'll be a Direct and they'll feel more comfortable with a release date, because this seems to be something that very well could find its way into 2023. And a game that they very well could even close the Direct with is the new game from Monolith Soft. I say new game because while we're expecting Xenoblade Chronicles 3, there's also been talk around a brand new intellectual property from Monolith. And I mean, if they show up with a brand new game, I think it'd be pretty interesting to see what direction they would go with there. Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I mean, we have an idea, but like, what could Monolith Soft come up with a massive workforce that they've been accruing over the years? And that, I think, would be a really cool way to close things out there. Brand new IP from Nintendo and Monolith Soft. Otherwise, though, hey, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I'm on board for that too. And then who knows with any of the third-party stuff, we've already seen the Batman Arkham Collection leak out a bit early, so anyone's best guess there, and of course, any predictions you have down below in the comments, let me know. Next up, let's talk about an interview between PlatinumGames and Famitsu. This certainly got the internet talking because it appears that PlatinumGames is maybe aiming for a live service title with this new IP that they are currently building using funding from Tencent. Let's head over here. This from Video Games Chronicles. And this is, again, an interview between Famitsu and company co-founder Atsushi Inaba, saying Project GG is still in the stage of testing various things, so I can't tell you much about it, but when it comes to the future game production, we want to focus on creating games that are different from the past. I would like to focus on creating games that can be enjoyed and loved for a longer period of time. Of course, we would like to cherish and create small but brilliantly conceived games such as Soul Cresta, and games in which you can enjoy the process of clearing the game by going through one-off, well-designed stages such as Bayonetta. However, the projects that we are trying to create for the future will be different in terms of their structure, considering the changes in the market over the next 5 years or so. I think it's absolutely necessary for us to do this. I'm sorry for being so vague, but I think that's all I can tell you right now. So we've been hearing a lot about live services recently. I mean, with Sony picking up Bungie and then announcing they're doing 10 live services over the next 5 years or so. And now here's PlatinumGames saying that big IP, Project GG, that they finally get to create and own very well could be something that is more ongoing than they're typically used to. Now, they are currently working on Babylon's Fall. That's like a live service apparently with Square. It doesn't look great right now, but they have made some very good games in the past. Things like Bayonetta, obviously, Nier, and I think that's what people are looking at right now as, oh, are those going to become live services as well? Well, no, because if you consider what PlatinumGames owns when it comes to those games, it's nothing. I mean, even Astral Chain, Nintendo just owns that completely now. So PlatinumGames mostly was operating as basically a mercenary, going around creating these games for these parent companies and then walking away really with nothing when it comes to that intellectual property. This is their chance to make a game that is completely theirs, publish it, once again, using funding from Tencent, and most likely they're thinking, well, if we really push forward with this, we should make sure that there is a way to make revenue after the fact, after it sells, because this might be our one big shot at doing it. And just based on the way we're seeing costs around game development continue to increase along with expectations, it's not surprising that you're starting to hear more and more talk around live services. Microsoft is basically all in with it. We even see Nintendo push towards it with different things like when the Pokemon company with Pokemon Go, they're doing a lot with cell phone games. So yeah, I'm kind of looking at this and saying, it's something that is necessary now in gaming, especially if these companies also want to do single-player style games. While they can sell very, very well and make money, not everyone will, but a live service game is something that can build over time, bring in revenue for maybe even a platform holder like Sony, who's doing 10 of them, and then fund these big budget, expensive single-player narrative-driven experiences. I think for Platinum, very similar because they're not going to stop working on a Bayonetta or a Nier if Square or Nintendo show up. They just want to have something they can rely on going forward that is completely theirs and self-published. So I think we need to see more about Project GG before we say, wow, this is just terrible, because there are good live service games out there. It just is how it's approached and, well, how it shows up day one. And all these companies seem to think they can do it better than past live service games, and PlatinumGames is kind of weird, so who knows? Maybe they come up with this brand new take on a live service game with Project GG and it turns out to be really good. Next up, let's talk about the UK sales charts, as it did see the debut of Dying Light 2 and the continued sales of Pokemon Legends Arceus. We can head over here to the top 10. We have Pokemon Legends Arceus holding strong at number 1. It did drop 72% in sales week on week, but it was still able to top Dying Light 2 that came in there at number 2. Then we have FIFA 22 at 3, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 4, Animal Crossing New Horizons at 5, Minecraft on the Switch at 6, Mario Party Superstars at 7, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe at 8, Grand Theft Auto 5 at 9, because why not? And then Call of Duty Vanguard at 10. Now, Dying Light 2 was favored heavily towards PlayStation with 73% selling there and 27% on the Xbox. These are physical sales, however, and I do think on Xbox's side especially, they are really pushing towards the digital side of things. And looking at the Switch, Pokemon Legends Arceus being number 1 still despite dropping 72% week on week just shows how strong the sales for that game are right now, with Dying Light 2 doing well but still not able to take that top spot. If you look on Steam, Dying Light 2 had like its biggest launch ever, I mean compared to obviously the first one there, but for Techland, that was massive. There's quite a bit wrong with the game though, like I'm playing it and it feels very unstable or glitchy. Even with the parkour, sometimes the character does some weird things getting around, and they are releasing a ton of hot fixes and different things. They've outlined several patches over on their Twitter account, so make sure you check that out for your different platform. But so far, I am enjoying Dying Light 2, and I'm kind of finding myself veering off like the main story path to do different side quests and building up my skill tree as well as finding all kinds of different weapons and loot and everything. So it's a good time. It's just kind of rough around the edges, but Techland said they are going to be supporting it for like the next 5 years. I guess Dying Light 2 technically would be a live service game as well, so I guess you'd consider that a live service then. I think we look at these games and we think of live service differently at times, so if Dying Light 2 is supported for the next 5 years with new content, it would fall in that category, and it is a lot of fun, so I would recommend checking out Dying Light 2. Just understand it is a bit rough around the edges. And in our last bit of news, let's talk a little bit about game studio acquisitions, as those seem to take over the biggest headlines right now and create the most conversation online. There was one analyst, that being Dr. Serkin from PlatinumGames, who talked a bit about Sony and Microsoft in Japan potentially shopping around for some different game studios and publishers there, and how that would go over, I guess. We can see this posted up over on VGC. Nothing can be ruled out in this day and age, but in some ways, Microsoft taking over a big Japanese publisher would be bigger news than the Activision deal. So far, no foreign game company has been able to acquire a Japanese studio, and I can guarantee you, there have been attempts from both Western and Asian players. There were actually talks that Microsoft attempted to pick up Capcom when they were in a bad spot years and years ago, and I think even with Square a long, long time ago there. He goes on to say, Sony, of course, has the home field advantage, and some of the challenges that would come up from Microsoft would not apply to Sony. It doesn't have to be one of the publicly traded powerhouses, but I believe Sony is at least considering making a move in Japan soon. So I've considered this a bit more. I don't really know why Sony would necessarily buy Square or Capcom or Sega, because they all seem to work with Sony anyway right now. The reason for the Bungie acquisition is so that they could really fast track the experience that they need to have successful live service games. It was more about the talent at Bungie than the IP that Bungie controls with Destiny. I mean, you look at Capcom and Square, they're making deals all the time with Sony. Like, those games just go to Sony's platform anyway. I feel like if Sony made a play in Japan, it might even be for a smaller support studio that they could either merge in or just have help out with Team Asobi as they work to create new intellectual properties, or just work to build on Astro, for example. That's kind of what I think with Sony right now in Japan. Microsoft is just going to have a hard time in general, as was pointed out by Dr. Serkin. It comes down to like culture, and a hostile takeover just would not work anyway. So unless one of these companies fell into complete disarray and Microsoft said, hey, we can basically save you guys by buying you, that maybe is the only thing I could see there. And then Sony might just play defense and come in and pick them up instead. So that's sort of where I see all of this playing out right now. And I don't think Capcom or Square, any of them really want to be purchased, because they're all doing just fine right now. So we'll see if Sony makes a play. I'm thinking it might be a studio that pops up and you're like, oh, I haven't really ever heard of them before. It's not going to be a Capcom or a Square. That would actually shock me. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a little poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, when is the next Nintendo Direct? 12% said this week, 49% said second half of February, 24% said not until March, and then, wow, 15% really think Nintendo's going until summertime, basically, until the next one. So after Kirby hits, they're just going to have a Twitter drop just to get us the rest of the way with the release date or something there. I think we're pretty close to a Direct is what I'm going to say here, and I'm looking forward to seeing Nintendo really work out what we're going to see in 2022. And hey, if we can get that title drop for the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, I'm sure that would cause a ton of hype and speculation all over YouTube. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from David, saying, with the sales volume that the Switch commands, it might make sense for NVIDIA to produce bespoke iterations of the Switch SoC that have backward compatibility modes built in. That's the most exciting part right now, by the way, is that the Tegra has never been more relevant when it comes to consumer electronics since the Switch came around. This is exciting stuff, because I believe NVIDIA is going to create a custom Tegra chip for whatever Nintendo wants to do in the future. Maybe they do want to add in DLSS or some sort of upscaling technique. NVIDIA might work to create a custom chip to support that. There's a lot of possibilities here, and that's the exciting thing, is Nintendo and NVIDIA working very closely for the next device and have this really cool custom chip. Whereas when they did this whole thing in 2016, 2017, they're building this Switch, they just basically took the X1 off the shelf because it wasn't really being used anywhere else. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here. There was Nintendo Direct, anticipation, hype. It's all over the place right now. Leave your best predictions down in the comments below as to what you think would be in the event. And then also, what about PlatinumGames? Kind of alluding to the idea of their next big game, Project GG, completely owned by them. would be a live service title. Do you like this future of seeing live service games all over the place? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.